Everybody, and welcome once again to Time Out with Kevin Gallagher. As you know, if you've been watching the show over the last couple of weeks, we are in the middle of a series where we are looking at the zodiac. And I'm sure a lot of you have been very much surprised with the fact that it's not what you thought it was. And we're going to continue researching sign by sign by sign as we make that way by steps, which is what the word zodiac means. And we are coasting through the various major star signs. Tonight, we are looking at Sagittarius, but we also have with us the author of the book, Sting of the Scorpion, and that's Jonathan Gray. Before we get to him, it's real important you go to my digital business card on the web where you can get access to all the TV shows, documentary films that I've done, and both radio networks that my radio show appears on, which is Time Out with Kevin Gallagher here and Time Out with Kevin Gallagher, the radio show. Check that out, and you can go to kevingallagher.me. That's kevingallagher.me, and you can get all the information there. Jonathan, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you here once again.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm happy to be with you again.
Hey, before we get rolling into the subject matter, why don't you, just for the sake of the people at home, maybe they're catching this show for the first time, give them a little bit of your background and the sign that was directly before Sagittarius, because as we're finding, each one of these signs kind of interlock with each other, so it's important that we back up a little bit, get a little bit of the nuances of meaning in the previous sign before we get into Sagittarius. So introduce yourself for the people and let's go from there.
Thank you. Kevin, I've been involved in archaeology, hands-on, first frontline archaeology on site where all the old sites are, for over 40 years now. And myself and my teams have uncovered quite a lot of things which have shocked us and overturned the traditional postulated view of history. We find that man in the past did know a lot more than we gave him credit for. In fact, they had high technology, they had great knowledge, and they also had a knowledge of the coming Messiah who was going to deliver those who would accept it from the problem that we all have in this world today, which has turned its back on its creator. And archaeology is bound up with this. As a matter of fact, archaeology has uncovered ancient maps of the world as well as ancient maps of the sky. And we're dealing with the sky maps, which actually were covered in hieroglyphics telling an amazing story about the fact that they believed the world had been hijacked by a serpent representing the devil, but that a virgin's baby would come to feed him and bring and restore life and peace and happiness back to mankind. And this became the theme of the ancient zodiacs, the ancient sky maps. Now, just recapping where we've been so far, the 12 signs of the zodiac each have attached to them 3 other signs on the star map. So that means 1 plus 3 is 4, and 4 times 12, there are 48 star signs.
Right.
And Sagittarius is the 4th leading sign on the theme of the promised deliverer. Person, his work, his triumph. A little earlier we started with the promise concerning the deliverer, which was found in the star pictures and star names of the constellation Virgo. The seed was to be born, to be bruised. Now, work that was needed to achieve victory found in the subsequent 2 star signs, Libra and Scorpio. First, under Libra, it was the price to be paid. Under Scorpio, it was the pictorial and star name description of the struggle. Today, we come to the triumph of the deliverer. Eventual victory made certain. And that's the theme of Sagittarius and its 3 decans or side pieces, Kevin.
Yes. So with Sagittarius, how does it connect back into Scorpio, the sign that was directly before that? What do we learn from that?
All right. In Scorpio, we have a fight going on between the deliverer and the serpent, who is reaching for the crown. And Scorpio is twisting its sting around, the sting of the scorpion, to strike the deliverer in the foot. Old prophecy said that he would be wounded bruised in the foot, but that, and if you're bruised in the foot, of course, you can recover.
Right.
But that he would eventually bruise the serpent in the head, and once your head is bruised, that's the end of you.
Right.
So the story was telling that there was a struggle going to take place between the serpent and the deliverer, but the deliverer was going to win.
Got it.
And we now go on from the struggle of Scorpio to the winning, the triumph which Sagittarius portrays.
Fantastic.
To
Now,
remain certain.
this is it's really about the dual-natured one, triumphant conqueror, and it's about the mighty warrior with the bows and arrows, and is seen, riding. It's a double-natured centaur. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, starting with Sagittarius, before we go into the three side pieces which explain it even more, as you said, you've got a mighty warrior with bows and arrows. He's riding forth. He's no longer in connection with the cross. As centaur, he had a cross underneath him, illustrating the method of his death.
Okay.
He would be sacrificed on a cross. But now he was then offering himself as a sacrifice. But now he's lifted up high, and he's rising in majesty, ready to fight anything. And the Greeks call him Chiron, which means the righteous dealing one. And his barbed arrows are aimed at the heart of the scorpion. If you look at the whole sky map together, you'll see scorpion is in the pathway of these arrows. Scorpion, of course, represents the enemy.
Now, is it true that what we now call the Southern Cross, because it can be seen from New Zealand where you are, but not here where I am in the United States, is that was sitting somewhere due north above where Jesus Christ was crucified?
Yes, actually, it was visible at the time of his crucifixion. And almost around the time of the crucifixion, it became invisible because the procession of the movement of the heavenly bodies rendered it going under the equator. And this means that from that time onward, it became no longer visible to people in the north. And that's why it's called the Southern Cross today.
And I know it's a little off subject, but what was the significance with the birth of Christ, where the sun was located at the time?
Yes, the sun was located in the head of the Virgin that was holding the baby. And that was Virgo, of course.
Yeah.
And at his death, the sun was located right there in the head of the lamb, which represented the dying one, who was the same deliverer coming to die. So it's interesting that the location of the particular heavenly bodies coincided with events related to the coming of Jesus Christ as the Saviour.
Now, what about the star names that are in Sagittarius? What do they denote for us?
Well, one star name has the idea of delight in what he's doing. Another one, swiftness. And another one, Hebrew name is Nam, means the gracious one. He's sometimes depicted as occupying Apollo's throne by the Greeks, and he's also pictured on a white horse overthrowing his enemies and rooting out all evil. Our names have to do with the fact that he's gracious, he's right living, and he delights in rescuing his people, and he won't waste time. If the occasion is needed, he's right there immediately to help his people and save them and rescue them.
Now, it's amazing the significance of the different stars, because they all have nuances of meaning that all hook into the constellation itself and enhances and brings out all the hidden meanings that are within there.
Yes, they do. Each one on its own, of course, you might wonder why is it called that. But each one had a reason for being named, and when you put the whole lot together, they may mean nothing on their own, but when you put them together, you've got the complete picture of deliverance.
Now, with the sub signs or the side pieces, the deacons as they're called, the first one is Lyra. You want to get into that right now?
Yes, perhaps I should just say one other thing first, that the star names that are given correspond to the descriptions of him coming in the Bible.
Got it.
In the book of Psalms, it talks about him and says, "Your arrows are sharp." back down in the book of Revelation, he's depicted as being on a white horse with his bow and conquering. It's the same picture that's in the star signs. I just thought that would be important to mention, that the Bible and the star signs agree totally in what they're portraying.
And the star signs predate what we call a Bible by how many thousands of years?
Oh, by about 4,000 years they predate the New Testament, by 2,500 the Old Testament.
And
so the message was already known to the world, and then, of course, through the Hebrew prophets, God gave more detail so that people could prepare.
And this is how a lot of the corruption came about through Nimrod, because they already had this revealed to them and knew what the star signs meant.
Yes, they did, and they tried to take advantage of it by preempting the fulfillment and saying that I'm the fulfillment of it. And that, of course, is scattered all over the world. Okay,
so let's hear about Lyra.
Lyra actually is a harp. And one of the brightest stars in the northern sky is in Lyra. It's called Vega. And that Vega is a star name which means he shall be exalted. In another language, it means the warrior triumphant, but the meaning is the same, of course. And in it, there's another star, Fentikar, which means the serpent ruled. So this is a story, again, where the serpent is in the picture, but the serpent is defeated. The deliverer is exalted. He is triumphant over the serpent. So the sign does portray the joy and happiness and celebration at the destruction of the serpent that is coming.
Right.
And it's interesting that some of the old zodiacs actually add also the figure of an eagle or a hawk, who is always and has always been the enemy of the serpent, just to illustrate even in a greater way the attitude of triumph that is now being shown in this Sagittarius and its side pieces.
Now
triumph over the serpent.
Yeah, that would be the eagle being added is because the eagle is the natural enemy of the serpent?
That is right, and that's simply to reinforce the message that this is trying to portray.
Amazing. What about Ara?
Ara means, has to do with a fire. Ara is a sign that both in the Latin and the Greek means the burning pyre, or in the Arabic, the finishing of what was undertaken to be done, and in the Hebrew and the Greek, the curse, utter destruction. So it's talking about the finishing of the battle, ending in a curse and utter destruction by fire. Now, it's a picture of a funeral pile, and the Egyptian zodiac shows an enthroned figure, the coming one, victorious over the dark one. And the whole significance of this figure connects with the ultimate destruction, the completion of the curse, the sending into the lake of fire, and of course, Revelation and the Gospel of Matthew both talk about the devil and his angels going into the lake of fire, the fire prepared for the devil and his angels. And at the time of your appearing, you will make them like a fiery furnace, says the book of Psalms. In his wrath, the Lord will swallow them up, and fire will consume them.
Now, before we go any further, let's talk a little bit about the images that people have been seeing throughout this documentary. What is significant about the images themselves that we're looking at?
The images themselves are very carefully chosen. In some cases, they're people, other cases, they're animals, and as in this case here, it's an object. But they all are put together like a hieroglyphic to tell a progressive story. And as we mentioned at the early part of this broadcast, Kevin, we're dealing here with the work of the promised deliverer who is going to fight the serpent and rescue his people.
Pretty amazing. These images all date back a very long time, correct?
4000 BC.
That's absolutely amazing. Now, the next part of the side pieces is Draco.
Draco, yes. Draco means dragon. Now, on the old star maps, this dragon has coiled itself actually around the northern pole of the sky. And this is interesting because it's on the sides of the North Pole, polar star, on the old maps. That reminds us of the prophecy in Isaiah chapter 14, which depicts Satan as boasting. I will descend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the sides of the north. I will be like the Most High. Now, the North Pole has always been the point of reference in the sky for navigators who are travelling around the world.
Right.
And it represents the controlling or the guiding influence which overrides the earth. And it's the reference point. And Satan wanted to be that reference point for all mankind. And so he is pictured here as trailing around the sides of the north, around the North Polar Star, to be like a god, as the controller or the guider of mankind.
Now, isn't there one of the signs with Draco, or one of them where the serpent you're talking about is stretched out over maybe 2/3 of the sky?
Yes, that is right. This is the same one.
This is the same one, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating when you see how much real estate, so to speak, that it takes up in that 16-degree area that depicts those star signs.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting that the word Draco has been divinely chosen long before the event that will cause it to happen. Draco means trodden down. Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
So he's named as the trodden down one long before the victory is over.
So Draco, to me, sounds very similar to, say, dragon.
Yes, it is.
So is there a relationship between those words?
There's a linguistic relationship,
There is.
Right.
Okay. Now, what can you tell us about the star names and such that we find in here, and how it connects into the greater sign?
Well, without going into the actual names of the stars, translated into English, they have these meanings. These are the stars of the constellation Dragon. Full, who is about to be destroyed, humbled, brought down, punished enemy. Now, the serpent and the dragon are in Scripture recognized as two symbols of the same person. The serpent denotes Satan in his aspect of a sly deceiver. And the book of Genesis says that he was subtle and he deceived Eve so carefully.
Yeah.
Dragon denotes his armed force as a violent oppressor, because a dragon is ferocious and frightening. And this constellation Draco explains exactly who it is that Sagittarius is striking with his arrow. And this is what results in great shouts of victory from those who are saved from him. Interesting that in the book of Revelation, you have the great red dragon who stands before the woman to devour her child as soon as he's born. He failed to defeat the child, and so when he found that he had failed into heaven, he then started persecuting the ones left behind.
Yeah.
And now comes the crowned warrior on a white horse to put him down and to rescue his people.
Yeah.
It's interesting that in the books of Isaiah, is the prophecy, he shall punish the crooked serpent, he shall slay the dragon. And the rescued people are called upon to sing and shout and rejoice when that event comes. Over in the book of Psalms, dragon shalt thou trample under feet. So there's the prophecy. It's all wrapped up with the same defeating of the serpent or the dragon by the deliverer.
Are there any other biblical verses that you can give us that tie into this sign?
Well, there's also the fact that we will. I guess that sums it up, Kevin.
Okay.
I was going to say something, but I've already gone through it.
That's okay. Now, this is the last of the first book, those first four signs. This is number 4 of 4. Why don't we take a look at how Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius kind of fit together as one larger piece?
Okay, then. In Virgo, we have three side pieces called Coma, Centaurus, and Bootes. And Virgo actually is the virgin who is going to give birth to the seed, the child we're waiting for, and he's going to be the deliverer, the saviour. And Coma illustrates that he's desired by all nations because she's lifting him up above her own head to show that not her, but Coma is the woman. The child that she's holding is desired because he's being lifted up for worship, not her. And then in Centaurus, the other side piece, we have him as the dual-natured man. He's both God and man, but he's being sacrificed, and hence we have the cross underneath him. He's being sacrificed up on a cross. And then we have Bootes, the third side piece of Virgo, and he's now looked upon as a shepherd and a harvester who's going to gather his people. He's going to gather in the harvest, and he's going to be their shepherd, their protector. Then we go to Libra, to be paid. Libra is a set of scales, and we have been weighed in the balances. We're found wanting. We can't measure up to God's standard. So along comes the deliverer. He's here to span the gap between man and God and make it up for us. God and man, fully God and fully man. Now, the price that he has to pay is the cross, and so we have the constellation Crux. And the victim, he's called Victima, or Lupus, which means that he has to be slain. The Arabic calls him Surah, which means the lamb, so he's the same person. Then there is Corona, which is related to that, the third side piece, and that is the crown purchased. And so the crown, the ownership, the rulership, it comes back to him.
Amazing.
Now, Scorpio represents the sting that is involved in the wounding, the pain that's involved in this. He stands on the head of the scorpion, which means he's going to crush him. The scorpion lifts its tail up to pierce him in the foot, which means he's going to be wounded in the process. The two of them are fighting for the crown. The scorpion and the serpent are both the same. In the Bible, scorpion, serpent, and dragon are all speaking of the same. And the serpent here is reaching up for the crown. So, Ophiuchus is called the deliverer, restraining the serpent. That's the same person that's born of the woman. He's called Hercules in the second side, in the third side piece, and he is holding a decapitated serpent, and he's about to club it. So that's the message. Now then we come into Sagittarius, which shows the victory, the gladness, the playing of the harp, the fire of punishment for the defeated serpent, and he's cast down. So it's a beautiful picture, the whole lot.
Wow. So let's take a look in the few minutes that we have left at Capricorn, and how does Capricorn and Sagittarius fit together?
Well, they fit together in this way. Sagittarius is the final of the four main star signs relating to the promised deliverer and what he is, who he is, what he's going to do, and how he's going to triumph. Capricorn, we now go to a new stage of the star sign, a new chapter, you might say, of the star sign group. And this moves from the promised deliverer that we've been looking at in Sagittarius to the rescued ones themselves. And these are the fruits of his work. And Capricorn actually illustrates that his death, the deliverer's death, is going to make possible the life of the rescued ones. There comes the link. He's going to die, but his death results in their life. And you'll notice that in Capricorn, there's a transition going from the one who is dying to those who are going to be saved from death. And that's why Capricorn, the sacrifice that's slain, has linked to it the tail of a fish. The little fishes are the ones swimming around in the sea that are being attacked by the sea monster. And demon, the same devil, but now they are linked with him, and he rescues them.
Absolutely fascinating. How can people get more information if they wanted to find out more about your publication, Sting of the Scorpion, and some of the other projects that you've worked on? How would they go about doing that?
Oh, they could come to the website, Kevin, thank you. It's beforeus.com, www.beforeus.
Got it. All right. And Jonathan, I want to thank you so much for joining me here on the program. It's it's a fascinating look at something that I think everybody thought they already knew a lot about, and come to find out we don't, you know?
Yes, it's wonderful when you get into it. This subject actually has turned around the lives of quite a few people that I personally know.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Any final thoughts? I have about a minute left.
Okay, let's not confuse this with astrology. Astrology is the counterfeit that comes from Nimrod and spread out over the earth. Astrology deals with fortune-telling, trying to predict people's futures. But the real and true and lasting message is not predicting people's futures in the personal fortune-telling sense, but foretelling the future of the whole great plan of rescue for mankind initiated by God himself.
Fantastic. Jonathan Gray, thank you so much for joining me all the way from New Zealand. And I'm, of course, Kevin Gallagher. Get a chance to check out his website, beforeus.com. That's beforeus, that's beforeus.com. A lot of great stuff there, very interesting website. Jonathan has definitely done his homework and put together a really nice document there called Sting of the Scorpion. And for Jonathan Gray, I'm, of course, Kevin Gallagher. Please tune in again next week as we take another step, another look into another star sign. And as always, it has been completely fascinating. So until next week, have a great night. I'm Kevin Gallagher. For Jonathan Gray, thank you very much.